And his home, one of his vacation home, is on Route 1, open in the summer, and I invite you all to visit it. Hale said, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do."
Goes that once there was a wise woman traveling all through the mountains. One day she found a precious stone in a stream. She was so happy and grateful. It could change her life. The next day she met a man traveling just like her through the mountains. He was hungry and she was happy to share her food. But as she opened her bag, the man saw the stone, and he knew with this stone he would be able to eat all of his favorite foods. His mouth watered, imagining all the incredible flavors, all the ways his life would be filled with so much goodness. Instead of the food, he asked, "Can I have that stone?" The woman looked at him. Of course. And just like that, it was his. The man was happy. He ran quickly away, afraid she would change her mind. A few days later, however, the man appeared again, carrying the stone in his hands. "Take it back," he said. "Instead, I hope you can give me something even more precious than this stone. I hope you can give me whatever it is within you that made it so easy for you when I asked to just give it away." In this place, for this hour, we are all trying to learn how it is when we are asked to trust, to love, to give of ourselves, to share our blessings, that we can say an easy and great yes. And also, we are here to remember we all carry with us a precious stone that is this great blessing, this gift that is just ours, this gift that we long to offer the world, that in our giving will bless us all the more. Let's remain seated.
Squash, and you want to stand up, Mac? Go for it. This comes from Mac's garden, and apparently he is a champion grower of enormous squash. Yet another talent that Mac possesses. So this is a 2.5-foot squash, which he is happy to share with anyone who'd like to claim a chunk. I don't know who has the knife to cut it, but okay.
You can find it.
And Rev Denis noted that he found the recipe also, if anyone seeks that. In honor of this mammoth squash, Rev Denis thought that it would be nice to share this reading from Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. It's so interesting when you have text, from a novel that just puts you in. Once upon a time, a farmer planted a little seed in his garden, and after a while it sprouted and became a vine and bore many squash. One day in October, when they were ripe, he picked one and took it to market. A grocer man bought it and put it in his shop. That very same morning, a little girl in a brown hat and blue dress with a round face and a snub nose went and bought it for her mother. She lugged it home, cut it up, and boiled it in the big pot, mashed some of it with salt and butter for dinner. And to the rest, she added a pint of milk, 2 eggs, 4 spoons of sugar, nutmeg, and some crackers, put it in a deep dish, and baked it till it was brown and nice, and next day it was eaten by a family named March. You can see that our Reverend loves cooking, can you?
Kidding, Adria, I do like to cook. I'm a little food obsessed, and I love feeding guests. Maybe that's why we get so many visitors from out of state. And every time we get a visitor from another part of the country, they want us to take them to the same historical site, Orchard House, the home of Louisa May Alcott in Concord, Massachusetts. So if you don't know, you couldn't have figured it out from the reading we just heard, she was the author of Little Women, which is one of those books that so many people tell us they read over and over again in their lives, some every 25 years, some every year. It's a book that has been made into a movie no fewer than 5 times. Most recently by award-winning director Greta Gerwig, who grew up Unitarian Universalist. Ms. Gerwig is one of many UUs who love Louisa May Alcott and the fictionalized story of her family, headed by her father, Bronson Alcott, a noted Unitarian Transcendentalist philosopher and education innovator. Orchard House is a really amazing place. Bronson Alcott bought it in 1857, and he cobbled together an abandoned farmhouse and a couple of outbuildings that he relocated and attached to the house. And there's also a drafty lecture hall that he built a few steps from the house, a place where Transcendentalists gathered from all over the country during the summer for study and reflection. Like my old house, it's wonky. Nothing is level, square, or plumb. The floors creak. And unlike my house, everything is original. Almost none of the windows function. I've been there probably 8 or 10 times now. I love the patina on everything. The way you can really feel the presence of the Alcotts to this day, even though I'm sure hundreds of thousands of people have been through it. And if you know anything about this family, you know that in Little Women, Louisa, who in real life went by the shortened version Lou, modeled the character Jo after herself and the other March girls after her sisters. She had to make the characters younger than the actual Alcott girls so that the father character would be more likable. You see, in the story, the father went off to fight in the Civil War, and Jo and her sisters stayed with their mother, Marmee. And the father's absence caused a temporary kind of financial hardship. But in reality, Bronson never made any money. As a young girl, Lou worked as a seamstress, as a governess, and a maid to support her family. At one point, she started selling her writing and was a successful pulp fiction author. As a teenager, a young teenager, Lou was the family's breadwinner. A situation that was so desperate for her that at one point she considered ending her life. When the Civil War broke out, Bronson, a vocal abolitionist, stuck around Concord, while Lou went off to work as a nurse for the Union Army. After only 6 weeks, she contracted typhus and was treated with mercury, which only made her sicker. And she was never quite the same after that. Lou never married, but she spent most of her social time in the company of men whom she considered to be her intellectual peers. Some biographers say that she was smarter than her father, and yet, until Bronson died, she cooked, served, and cleaned for him and his constant stream of guests, even as she continued to support the family financially. On these Orchard House tours, the story of poor, suffering Lou always makes me think that she must have lived with bipolar disorder. Now, I'm no shrink, but I'm also not the only person to wonder the same thing. She had periods when she was happy and productive to the point of being almost superhuman, when she could sew a dress, walk to Boston and back, and write a book chapter all in one day. But she also had other periods in which she could accomplish nothing and would remove herself from the family for days on end. She'd put an embroidered pillow on the parlor settee to indicate her mood. If it was arranged a certain way, the family knew to give her space and stay away. Of course, an armchair diagnosis is all speculation based on her self-reporting of her own feelings and behaviors. But her approach to her own mental health, I think, is illustrated best through one phrase in Little Women. When she has to rush off to retrieve her critically ill husband, on her way out the door, Marmee turns to the girls and says, "Hope and keep busy." And that becomes their mantra. In times of crisis, what else is there to do but hope and keep busy? And that's exactly what so many of us did in the early spring of 2020, remember? While medical professionals tended to the sick and dying and researchers worked around the clock to find a cure or a vaccine, we were told over and over again that unless we were essential workers, all we could do to help was to stay home to prevent the virus from spreading. So we did. We worked from home, we went to school online, and congregational life went all virtual. In between the Zoom dinner parties and family game nights and binge-watching Netflix, we tried to keep ourselves busy so as not to fall into a pit of despair. I went around town picking up furniture on the tree lawns on trash night, and I'd drag each piece home, then spend all my free time stripping and refinishing. The repetitive and solitary nature of the work was a kind of spiritual practice that kept me sane. It was restorative, and it was creative, and it was connected to the past. And looking back, yeah, it was a little manic. Maybe a lot manic. My dear husband, Joe, who is a lifelong quilter, answered the call to make masks for essential workers in the shortage of medical grade masks. He and his mom used up every tiny scrap of fabric they had to make masks, into which coffee filters could be inserted and changed daily. They and hundreds of other regular customers of a nearby quilt shop produced 100,000 masks in less than a month at one quilt store. It was a manifestation of the mantra to hope and keep busy. When we got to Massachusetts a couple years ago, when everyone was still wearing the readily available COVID-approved mass-produced masks, Joe talked with other sewists that he met in our neighborhood who had done the same thing, who had made masks. And he gathered all of their scraps, some of them just teeny tiny scraps, and a few of the remaining masks, and he made this quilt. Some of the pieces in there are tiny. They're a fraction of a square inch. Nothing was wasted. The colorful fabric illustrates the joy and the innovation of the work, and the black zigzag quilting stitch that puts it all together illustrates the urgent, almost macabre nature of the work. You should take a look at it. The black zigzag reminds me of Frankenstein's stitches. They're that urgent and coarse. We moved to New England when things were starting to get back to normal, and I was busying myself with stripping and painting woodwork in our wonky, new, old house. And he was making this quilt and visiting Orchard House with guests. Hope and keep busy. We realized it'd become our mantra, even if we didn't know it. I've been thinking a lot about this lately as I think about the future of our congregation and religious faith in general in the Western world right now. A few weeks ago, dressed in my wacky pink Barbie suit, I talked about my hope that we could be a little less sisterhood of getting it done and a little more siblinghood of just being. that we might have more gender diversity, more inclusive of folks who don't identify as cisgender women, and a little more focus on spiritual reflection, collectively and individually. How can we do less and still live by the motto, hope, and keep busy? Especially in times of brutal wars that leave us feeling powerless and heartbroken. And I think the answer is actually in two parts. First, there's hope. You can't have hope if you don't take the time to reflect on gratitude. Hope only comes when we pay attention to the things that are good in our lives and the things that could be good in our lives with a little intentionality. Situations become hopeful when we make them so. The second part, of course, is keeping busy, but keeping busy the right way. I guess for me, that means putting aside all the things that we do to make things more complicated, like gathering endless information before making a decision, or creating committees to do work that could be, and usually are, done by one person. So what does meaningful busyness look like? I think it's doing things that serve a larger purpose beyond getting the task completed. And that meaningful purpose could include building community, deepening relationships, welcoming more people with joy and compassion, loving each other just as we are, warts and all, growing spiritually by sharing not just our experiences with each other, but the lessons we learn along the way, lessons about who we are and how we live in the world. Maybe having more meals together, going for walks together, visiting each other at home and in nursing homes, and seeking more justice by showing up when we can make a difference, and keeping our opinions to ourselves when the experiences of others would be at the center of the conversation. Basically, if we want to live into the mantra, hope and keep busy, we need to just keep on living out our mission on purpose. We can start with simply showing up for the open conversation about Israel and Gaza a week from tomorrow, hosted by Adria. We can show up with curiosity and vulnerability and maybe a little less fear and anger, ready to listen more than we speak. And I gotta tell you, I am thrilled to be working with your new board of directors. Under the guidance of Nancy Richmond, we're taking the time to get to know each other and really reflect on how we can better live out the mission that we share. Nancy has this great mental image. The lay leadership, as well as the professional staff, are sidekicks to the congregation. You share your dreams and we'll help to make them happen. Not by doing the work, but by empowering the existing committees to use their authority to make important decisions and implement new ideas. So new members, on this auspicious day, I want to let you all know that you are coming in at a great time. A time when we're poised to live out the motto of one of our favorite Unitarian forebears, Louisa May Alcott. This is a time for us to hope and to keep busy. And I am so glad you're joining us. Please rise now in body or in spirit and remain standing, if you can, through the end of the service. Let's all open our great hymn.
In the congregation where he became a Unitarian Universalist nearly 23 years ago. And I think it's so wonderful to have this blessing as new members officially join us. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all who seek a right path, may a way be found, and the courage to take it step by step.